All right, guys. Yes, another Last of Us video. Yes, I'm going to milk this for everything that it's worth. A lot of you guys spent $60 on this game. So yeah, I'm going to recoup the fees for you by talking about this as much as I possibly can. I do not give a goddamn that people are tired of hearing me talk about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm a content creator. This is what I do. You wait 7 years for a game to come out. Now, granted, I was a little skeptical mainly because the multiplayer was not going to be ready. Nonetheless, we got the story. I saw the story. I played it even a little bit. And yeah, I'm going to continue to talk about this. Mainly, a lot of videos are just in response because I come up with these videos and I have a point and then I'm responding to some of the talking points that I see are reoccurring. And I think that's a lot of the content that I've been making that's surrounding this. And I absolutely have every right to do that. I think a lot of people out there making very terrible arguments, inconsistent arguments, and I should be the one to point some of those out. Today, we're going to talk about Abby and why she sucks, because a lot of people get it twisted. Because this is more so combined thing where the addition of her is trash, but when you consider the ending, it's not fulfilling in any way, shape, or form, and it doesn't obviously make sense for reasons that I've explained, and I'll even reiterate here. But let's start about the sort of shoehorn of Abby in itself. Abby has obviously been sort of trying, and in some capacity, wanting, dare I say, revenge. That's the whole theme of this. For her father's death, who was just seemingly an NPC in the last game. In this game, you learn that one of the doctors that you kill, this is the daughter. So, granted, that guy has absolutely no moral high ground, considering that he was willing to kill Ellie. But you lose your father. The reason why a lot of us are saying that it's sort of this plot convenience, it's not even the fact that she was looking. Again, people come up with these phantom arguments and say that you are trying to make this argument, and therefore they have to formulate an argument against it. But their argument doesn't work unless they're responding to that specific argument. The issue is that it's sort of the bit that was lazy in her addition was that Joel falls into her lap. By that, I mean they go on these patrols and so forth. And it just so happened that during this blizzard and so forth, they just happen to run into Abby. Now, Abby has absolutely no idea who these people are. They save her, but they have no idea. She has no idea who these people are until they tell her who they are. Which again, and I've mentioned in the previous videos, is a slip up. It makes no sense. I'm not trying to hear anything about, well, they had been taking it. No, they hadn't. They may not have any major conflict, but as confirmed that people have been going on, they've been going on these patrols and so forth. So they were at least battle ready. And you don't spend years, 20 something years sitting here being a survivor, right? And you just put the blinders on. Go watch my video. I talk about the trust thing. I mean, yes, there was Tess. Yes, there's obviously Ellie. Some of you guys bring up bad arguments with Henry and Sam, forgetting that, it was not Joel that wanted to trust them. Because when they had sort of was like, hey, we should work together, Joel was like, nah, it was actually Ellie that convinced him. That's not a Joel thing, right? Joel is very reluctant to trust people. That's just how he survives. That's sort of even something that, as naive as Ellie maybe was when she was younger, that's something that he sort of, you remember the scene where, because he used to do the whole, I've done it, played ambush someone. That's what this person is doing. I'm not even taking a chance. That person ain't wounded. They all right. Nonetheless, they wouldn't dare turn the blinders on like that, which is what happened. The blinders came on. Spilled the beans. Hey, I'm Tommy. Here's my brother Joel. Here's our social security number. We live over there and all of that. Blah, blah, yeah. All right. That's how Big Mama Pump. Holla if you hear me. That's how Big Mama Pump knows exactly who they are. Okay? That's it. That's how they know. So we say plot convenience for that reason. So her addition was a shoehorn and just a stumbled upon accident. And I understand that in some cases that makes sense. But the whole coincidence element here just doesn't work. Mainly because the whole where she comes from was forced anyway. With the whole, now we know much more about this doctor, has his backstory, flashback, saving zebras. We know all of this now. That in itself was outrageous. But it was at least somewhat believable. What wasn't was that person just happened to stumble or land in your lap that happened to kill your during a blizzard, right? Just happened to kill, okay, your father. And there they are, up for the take. So you got to understand that the frustration that people have when it comes to that whole deal, that forcing her into this narrative, and Joel dying, and a result of that was because it was uncharacteristic, and it was clearly done to try to move the story along. That's why it was done fairly early on in the game, but they wanted to move the story along, and that's why that happened. And it sucks for that reason, because they had to kill a character off that is you have no connection to Abby up until this point. We know Joel. That is the protagonist. This is why it makes people feel some kind of way. And it's not even just in the fact that he died. It's the way that he died. It's the context that he died in which he had to do some uncharacteristic of him. You think this is something that Joel and Tommy, they understand. Like, again, you go on a patrol, you know that there's going to be people out there. You understand the people out there looking for you. Come on, man. Like, the fact that he just goes full idiot, it doesn't really make sense. Or even allows Tommy to put this foot in their mouth. That's just something that doesn't make sense. But that had to be done in order to force her in. So now she's thrusted upon us. And they spend the whole entire game obviously trying to make you sympathetic and empathize with the character. That was the direction they clearly wanted to go, as if, there's two sides to every single story, right? So this is, again, our first time being introduced to this character. And man, she is something special in terms of her ability to, she's a very strong woman. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But she, in the 1v1 situation, she don't seem to lose now fight. I mean, even the sex scene that's making everybody uncomfortable. I mean, it's kind of questionable there, man, because I feel like Owen feel like he had to do what he had to do. So he gives her the googly eyes because he was outmatched. She had that man against that wall. He was done. But nonetheless, very strong character that they wanted to put in this narrative, and they killed off a main protagonist in the first game, who, oddly enough, just get killed, and you have to play as the person that does it. So you can imagine, as the person that's watching this or the person that's playing it, I gotta now play with if they played the first game, and that's why the context matters so much. And I think a lot of people that are defending this game miss. If you played the first game, it's one thing if you didn't even play it, but if you played the first game, there's no way that you can say that objectively that was let's say even a good way, by measurable things, that was a good way that was handled. So the way she was thrust upon this narrative doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Very lucky, very plot convenience type of shoehorn into. Kills off the main protagonist. You have to then play with her. And they spend going out of their way trying to make you empathetic to her experience as far as what she does. Hey, she gets to play with a dog and everything she's doing, she's trying to rationalize with some of her decisions. But it'll never get to that point to where when you consider what happened, how she was like, she's already off on the bad foot. And there's no redeemable quality necessarily about her that even makes you feel for that. And I understand that all the big brains out there think that they are so smart. And this is just such a complex narrative. And that's exactly why you don't get it. No, we get it. We understand that they were trying to do that. We understand that they were building all the way up until this narrative. And you're trying to paint the picture that there's two sides to both stories. The reason why Ellie doesn't kill her is because they both lost so much. And she wants to end the cycle of her. We get all that. We're just saying that it landed very badly. But going like, basically towards and I gotta say time and time again, I'm not criticizing the graphics of this game or anything. I'm specifically talking about the story. That is my issue with it. That will continue to be my issue with it as a guy that I'm willing to bet I've clocked more hours than you on that first game. Nonetheless, moving forward, I think a lot of people, as you see, are frustrated that you did not get to kill Abby with Ellie. But a lot of people lose some friends along the way. Me personally, I thought, considering the direction that game was going, if there was any way for it to be salvaged, you should have let us play with Ellie and Tommy. One of the more memorable parts or satisfying parts is when Tommy puts one right through Manny's face, but you don't even get to play it with him as that happens. And then of course they have their little fight or whatever on a ship, and then he falls overboard and whatever. And the part, of course, in theater, she gets shot, he gets shot in the knee with an arrow, shot in the back of the head. How he survived it is a wonder. But you never get to play as Tommy, and for a multitude of different reasons, because you do have characters that you are somewhat connected to in the first game, such as Tommy. Even the beginning of this game, this whole point is centered around his little settlement. Was Wyoming. That's where it starts, right? And you go towards the end, and what I know a lot of people wanted, even if you understood why Abby did what she did, I've seen a lot of folks be like, well, Abby lost so much, and then you got to consider that Abby didn't want to fight. So that's her telling you that, well, she didn't want anymore. It's like, no, we don't have any proof of that. Who is to say that? Because I'm pointing to that in regards to the avenging whole deal. I don't believe that, because number one, if she wanted to actually end the cycle of revenge and the cycle of violence, she would have killed them both, really, because then there's nothing left. However, unless there's some other NPC that she kills, and then that's Last of Us 3, I don't know. But in regards to this particular situation, that's it. But that's not what happened. She effectively frees. This is what makes it even worse. Effectively freed her. So at minimum, you could be like, all right, I'm just going to leave. I'm not even going to kill her. I'm just going to leave her hanging up there. But that's not what happened. Effectively, the woman who beat your father figure, basically, stand-in father figure, beat them right in front of you with a gun, tortured right in front of you. And you just, not only did you not kill them when you had the opportunity, you effectively freed them, because you freed one, that one freed the other, and instead of getting the job done, you just let them both go. There's nothing that points to the fact, just because she was like, I'm not about to do this right now, does not mean that she wouldn't come back later, get buffed up again. Because she was very weak and starving. She's just like, man, I don't got it in me to be fighting right now. I'm out. Look, I'm out. But a lot of people are painting that as like she would never. Says who? The door's wide open. Who's to say there's no conflict that happens? Tommy's going to be upset, didn't get the job done. Who's to say that she won't kill? That's my prediction that's going to happen in DLC. Abby's going to end up killing Tommy. Who's to say none of that can happen? Who's to say this cycle just ends right there with Ellie? There's no proof of that. It doesn't even make sense. When you consider the state that she was in there's plenty of other reasons that you could point out as to why she didn't fight. But a lot of people point to the fact, well, she spared her. She spared her a couple of times. That's not necessarily what happened. Abby was ready to slit the throat of a pregnant woman. The only reason she doesn't do it is because of Lev. She did not do it because she didn't have the desire to do it. When Ellie mentions, hey, she's pregnant, she says, good. Abby says, good. Watch this, basically. The only reason that doesn't happen is because of Lev. So if anybody saved someone, it would be her. It's not, oh, well, she just spared her out of kindness. So that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. The desire still was there. And again, if so much can happen, right? This is why these people excuse Joel's death in the way that it happened, because, well, it's Joel. They had been chilling for 5 years. Things can change. Okay. If we use y'all's own logic there, who's to say that Lev doesn't start to get revengeful? Or on behalf of the Fireflies, they want to take out both Tommy, because he's still a threat out there in some capacity, even though he's pretty injured, or Ellie. This was to end the cycle of violence, the cycle of revenge. I know you big brains out there, smooth big brains though, out there think that that's a good argument, but it's not. Because if anything, if you wanted to end it, you would have did that. And we know how Joel would have reacted on the other side of this. Joel gave you sort of a glimpse on that. And this is why the flashback is even worse, because Joel gives you a glimpse of that at the end of that flash when he's like throughout, sort of withholding this information from Ellie, these guys' motivations and so forth. He's like, bro, I would have did it again. And she's like, yeah, I forgive you. Or it's hard. I like to try more so. I don't know if I can, but I like to try. But you can't forget about that. That's why if anything, you look at that and this whole, I forgive you. I feel like you got your fingers bit off during this fight as well. You'd be seeing red. Remember, this isn't just a guy that killed Joel. You watched it happen. You saw it happen. And there's no proof that you've ended any cycle of violence, forgiveness. Abby sucks. She was forced upon the game player. And they clearly have some direction that they want to go with the character going into the future. God forbid if you actually have to forcibly team up with this character on a DLC with Ellie. Holy crap. We know what Abby lost, but to actually try to equate the two is complete nonsense. We saw one of the characters in the first game. Abby, at minimum, got her revenge. So she at least got that satisfaction. Did it ultimately, with this whole conflict, her friends, Owen, all of these people get killed? Yes. But she at least got her revenge. What did Ellie get in revenge? Nothing. She didn't kill the actual person. There's no revenge there. The person loses people, but not only that, like I say, you freed her. So now Lev, she has Lev at least, and she can walk away having had Lev. And this whole, well, it's a bond, right? She sees each other. There are look, smooth brain. They're not mirrors. Can you maybe concede that this is the attempt that yeah, but it's not. If you just go by the own events that happen, their own events, no, they're not equal. This isn't no situation as such. One got revenge. One gets to walk away when they should have been left dead to rights. The other loses her fingers, loses her woman, loses her father figure, loses everybody. Ellie loses everything. I can at least speak to two things Abby at least gained from this, though having lost a lot too. Pretty much everybody loses something. They lost friends, absolutely. We know this. But Ellie lost everything. And which player was forced upon us for that reason. So, when you consider that, and I get it that they tried to, the whole point when you're playing with her and you're seeing these things happen from her perspective, and you're seeing the relationships that she has with all of these other people, right? And it is certainly different in terms of how they seem to interact. It seems like you have a lot more negative interactions with one's friendly with the dogs, one's wanting to kill the dogs, right? And so forth. But little stuff like that, as far as the differentiation, they clearly are making an effort to try to, hey, we're going to save kids. We're going to save all of these people. Like, this is what they want you to do with Abby. But when you consider how she was forced upon us, when you consider what had to be sacrificed in order for this to even make any sense, and then you consider the end of it, you couldn't even get the satisfaction of offing this person, off the main protagonist, the way that she did, she would have got exactly what she deserved if either she was left up there or, like I said, the game ended in the Punisher style and you could have been able to kill her in 45 different ways. But that's not what you got. You had that connection, right? That's what the first game was all about, right? Joel basically gets a second shot finding Ellie right after he loses his daughter, right? Getting shot by a soldier, doing this apocalyptic nonsense, and his whole deal is survival. Whole deal with Tommy is survival. Even like, it's funny because this is why I said Tommy is also kind of out of character here. Not even just the fact that he tried to like sort of force Abby's hand at the end. Ellie there, really causing a turmoil there. But not even just that. It's like the fact that, when they were like, oh, we're in survival mode. They've been in survival mode all of those years, man. And then with Joel, right? Remember where they split? The whole reason they split was because Tommy's like, I don't think this is what we should do. With him joining was the Fireflies with Joel. You know what I'm saying? And they were like, I'm out. Like Tommy was like, I don't even want to see you no more, man. So even with that level of like, Tommy maybe have, if not more, lack of sort of trusting certain individuals. And it ultimately, that sort of trust, even in a dire situation, the thing you like, hey man, we're not telling people who we are. We don't know who these people are about. Just because she gets in a sticky situation and you save her does not mean that you have to go into this cabin or whatever. Does not mean that you have to spill all of the beans. You know what I'm saying? But that's what happened. But nonetheless, I may be getting some of those things with the first game conflicted. Nonetheless, it was out of character. And they had to sacrifice said characters in order to boost up Abby. Remember, this is an issue that I've seen with a lot of characters in comic books, and we've covered this on this channel. And if you have to do that, put characters out of character in order to make things that don't make sense, try to force them to make them make sense, just to force them on the audience, there's an issue there. And this is a lot of what the issue with. We know what they tried to do. We know there was an attempt. It just didn't land. And it's not because you have a big brain and the guys that's criticizing it just don't seem to understand no, we know what was attempted to do, what they had tried to do. We're just saying it was poorly executed. Abby she sucks in a multitude of different ways. That's all.